right, so picking up where we were last time, we were working our way through the cladogram, and we made it all the way through mollusca. So we are going to stay on this branch, and we are going to go into Annelida. The phylum Annelida means ringed. These are the segmented worms. So this is the first time that we see body segmentation. They have a coelom, so they have that body cavity, and they are triploblastic, so they have all three of those germ layers, the ecto, meso, and endoderm. They have more complex organ systems, and each one of these are going to be in each one of those segments. So they're going to have a urinary system, respiratory system, circulatory system, etc. So we have a lot more complex organ systems. They have true body segments, repeated sections. These are going to be divided by a structure called the septa. And we have some division of labor. So we have different systems doing different things. Circulatory systems, digestive, excretory are all separated inside of the body. We have a structure on one end of the body called the cerebral ganglia. So this is more advanced cephalization, the formation of a head and brain. We don't have a true brain yet, but we have this structure called the cerebral ganglia. And then we have these things called setae. Setae are bristle-like appendages that can be used for different things. And depending on the class of annelid that we are talking about, we're going to see differences in these setae and in the segmentation. So first we have the class Polychaeta. Polychaetes are, again, in the phylum Annelida, and Polychaeta means many bristles. These are going to be our aquatic worms. So we have things like bristle worms, fan worms, that are all going to be within this class Polychaeta. So included in this, the common name for some of these organisms are feather dusters and fan worms, and they are filter feeders. They have setae that are feather-like. So these feather-like structures coming off the body are their setae, and they are going to wave around in the water passively or actively, and they will capture food particles inside of those feather-like appendages. Some of these organisms, called tube worms, can actually form a type of tube that is made out of calcium that they excrete from their body. They can use this tube to hide inside of for anti-predator mechanisms. So if they feel threatened, they could shoot right into that tube. But if they feel relaxed, then they will have their full feather duster fan worm setae out to filter feed. So here is a GIF. Whoop, there it goes right into there. That's one of those tube worms. It felt threatened, and so it sunk right into that tube that it excreted. All right, so some characteristics of the class Polychaeta: bristleworms, fan worms, and feather dusters. They are only found in marine ecosystems, so only saltwater ecosystems. They are in, if you remember that molecular data that was separating out the cladogram for our for our protostomes a little bit more, they are in that group of Lophotrochozoa. So they have lophophores. That is that feather-like structure that they have. They are sessile, or they can be free-swimming. So they can be either or, moving or non-moving. They can have tentacles that can sense vibrations in the water. And their body segments have both parapodia and setae. This is the first time that we have parapodia. So parapodia are tiny, almost like foot-like structures. So here's a parapodia that I'm pointing out over here. This would be a parapodia. And these parapodia bear up the setae. So here are the setae, and here's the parapodia. So the parapodia are foot-like appendages that bear the setae, which can be used for swimming or even for respiration. In the parapodia, the circulatory system is extremely close to the surface of the skin, and it is highly vascularized. That means there's many vein-like structures close to the surface of the skin, and so they can actually passively have the movement of oxygen between the skin and the exterior environment. So respiration can also be used. And the setae in this case, they are bristles that can function to help with movement, defense, or filter feeding. So this is an example of a marine annelid, and this is a predatory marine annelid that will actually capture its living prey, like this small fish. So they can also be quite a terrifying thing to behold, to say the least. It's the stuff of nightmares. Okay, so let's go on to the next class then, rather than focus on some nightmarish worms. This is the class Oligacheta, or oligochaetes for short. These are probably things that we are used to seeing. These are our earthworms. So their name means few bristles. They are terrestrial, which means they're going to be living on land. And they are detritivores. They can actually filter out the dirt. They do not have parapodia. So this is something that separates them from the class Polychaeta. They do not have parapodia. Their setae are quite small, and they are going to be used to create friction on their surface to help with movement. They are hermaphroditic. They have a specialized reproductive structure called the clitellum. The clitellum is a series of swollen segments that joins the egg and sperm in a mucus membrane or mucus band that forms a small cocoon. So the clitellum is this section right here. So when two worms are ready to go through sexual reproduction, they will align those clitellum, fuse egg and sperm, both fertilizing each other because, again, they are hermaphroditic, and then they will excrete a mucus band around that to form a cocoon. Because they are true coelomates, they have more advanced types of movement, so controlled coelomate movement. They can extend and anchor and also contract. So they have a lot of different muscle, longitudinal and circular muscle, that they can expand and contract to help with directional, more intentional movement. So two types of muscle. Circular muscle is going to encircle the worm, and this can contract to lengthen the body segments. Longitudinal muscle runs the length of the worm and contracts to shorten the body segments. So circular muscle is going to wrap around. Longitudinal muscle goes long ways. So they can alternate contractions of both muscle types against that hydrostatic pressure within each segment, and segments can move independently. Now, hydrostatic pressure is referring to, if you recall from the previous lecture, this is referring to that pressure that's built up with that fluid-filled body cavity. So they can change the pressure in different segments of their body in that coelom and have more intentional and directional movement. The last class of annelid is the class Hyrudinae. These are leeches. Hyrudin, where they get their name from, is an actual compound that they excrete from their mouth. It's a natural anticoagulant that leeches produce. So this is where they get their name. Class Hyrudinae is from the production of hyrudin. They are freshwater ectoparasites, and they can be predatory. They're mostly going to be eating small invertebrates, things like nematodes and insect larvae. They have incomplete segmentation, so this separates them from the other two previous classes because the other classes had complete segmentation. They have incomplete segmentation. They have no parapodia or setae. Again, this is something that's separating them from the other two classes. With our polychaetes, they had both parapodia and setae. Oligochaetes had no parapodia but had setae. And our class Hyrudinae has neither parapodia nor setae. They have suckers on both ends, on the anterior and posterior. So anterior is by the jaws, by the mouth. Posterior is going to be by the anus. This is to hold on to prey. They have relatively flattened bodies versus the round bodies of the other two classes, normally. So relatively flattened bodies. They are like the other two classes. They are hermaphroditic. Oh, sorry, too soon. They are hermaphroditic, so they can serve the role as both male and female. Leeches, I put this on here because they have been and are still used for some small surgeries. Leeches can drain congested blood from wound sites with high precision. Plastic surgeons sometimes use leeches in difficult grafts. And they do this because it actually causes less damage than hypodermic suction. So we still use these today, and leeches have been used historically for a very, very long time. Okay, so back to our cladogram. We have now worked through Annelida, and I believe the next segment is going to be arthropods, and we will pick that up in the next lecture.